What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. Today we are talking about the must-add players that could be sitting on your waiver wire right now. We have a bunch of players on this list, some of them that I've talked about extensively in previous videos, but also some new players that you definitely want to take a look at. I changed the format for this video compared to previous must-add videos, so let me know in the comments below if you like it. I think it's easier to see which players you should add. I've ranked them, and I've also given more information on the screen as well. So without further ado, let's dive right into it. All right, first off, we're going to be talking about the must-add forwards. We have 28 forwards on this list, and the first player I want to talk about is Sam Lafferty of the Vancouver Canucks. Lafferty has been playing really good lately because he was moved up to the top line with Elias Pettersson. We don't know if this is long-term because it seems like Andrei Kuzmenko is in the doghouse. There's always a chance that Kuzmenko gets back on this top line. For now, guys, Lafferty is definitely a solid short-term option. He has a total of 15 points in 28 games. His ice time is still not the greatest. If we're looking at the last 5 games, it's only 14 minutes and 18 seconds. But still, playing on the top line on one of the best offensive teams in the NHL in the Vancouver Canucks definitely has its benefits. If you're in a deeper league, take a look at Sam Lafferty. Then at number 27, we have Morgan Frost. And I understand that Frost has been scratched a handful of times, and there's a good chance that he's scratched once again. However, we do have to understand that he is getting better deployment as of late. In the last 5 games, he's averaging 16 minutes and 12 seconds of ice time per game, and he's also currently on the first line power play. Last season, he led the Flyers in even strength points, and I do expect him to bounce back. So at only 2% rostered, a lot of value there. If you're in a deeper league, please take a look at him. At number 26, we have Nick Bjugstad of the Arizona Coyotes. His deployment has been fantastic as of late. In the last 5 games, he's averaging 19 minutes and 29 seconds of ice time per game. He has 17 points in 26 games. I'm very impressed with how he is playing. I will say that when Barrett Hayton comes back, Bjugstad's deployment will decrease and he may not perform as good, but for now, for the next couple of weeks, Bjugstad is definitely a very solid option. At number 25, you have Ross Colton of the Colorado Avalanche. The reason he's a must-add player is because he is currently in the top 6. Ryan Johansson got moved to the third line. His ice time has plummeted, so Colton has seen an improvement in his deployment. In his last 5 games, he's averaging 16 minutes and 44 seconds of ice time per game. I don't know what will happen with the lines in terms of the long-term potential of Ross Colton, but for now, this is a great short-term add. If you're in a deeper league, this is definitely a guy you want to take a look at. At number 24, we have Igor Chinakhov of the Columbus Blue Jackets. Not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but this guy's been playing amazing as of late. He just scored today. I'm recording this on Sunday night. He had a 3-point night the last game, and he is a young player that definitely has a lot of potential. I will say I'm not the biggest fan of his ice time totals. His ice time has increased in the last 5 games, 15 minutes and 15 seconds. It's still not great, but it is a good sign. We'll have to see how it all plays out. The Blue Jackets have a lot of players in their top 9 that they give ice time to, so I'm not sure if he's going to be a viable fantasy option in a lot of leagues, but in a deeper league, at only 1% rostered, he's absolutely worth looking at. At number 23, we have Tyson Forster of the Philadelphia Flyers. He is only 5% rostered on Yahoo, and I think this is far too low. If you're looking at his ice time totals, his last 10 games, 18 minutes and 24 seconds of ice time per game, and also he is on the first line power play, so very impressed with Forster so far. It seems like Tortorella, he likes him. Forster is one of his guys, so that's what we want to see on the Flyers. He currently has 11 points in 26 games. If this deployment continues, he is absolutely worth a look at on your waiver wire, so if you're in a deeper league, this is definitely a must-add player. At number 22, we have Alexander Kerfoot of the Arizona Coyotes. I will say that this is more of a short-term ad. The reason for this is because Barrett Hayton went down with an injury, and he should be back in around 4 to 5 weeks. We don't have the exact timeline, but Kerfoot's deployment has improved with Barrett Hayton being gone. His ice time totals will go down once Hayton returns. If we're talking about his ice time totals currently, though, 20 minutes and 52 seconds of ice time per game in the last 5 games is absolutely elite, and he's also on the first line power play. The Coyotes have a really good power play this year. They are clicking, so for the next couple of weeks, if Kerfoot is on this power play, he should rack up a decent amount of points. Definitely take a look at Kerfoot, and I think he's going to be pretty good in the short term, like I said. Number 21, we have Yegor Sharangovich of the Calgary Flames. The reason he's a must-add player is because he's currently on the first line and the first line power play. In the last 5 games, he's averaging 19 minutes and 43 seconds of ice time per game, which is elite. I don't know how long this deployment is going to last because it has been up and down this season, but This is elite ice time for a guy that's only 1% rostered. We'll see how it all plays out, but definitely take a look at him in a deeper league. Next up, we got Fabian Zetterlund of the San Jose Sharks. This guy's been on fire as of late, and his deployment is awesome. I mean, he's on the first line power play. He's in the top 6. He's averaging 19 minutes and 53 seconds in the last 5 games. I do think the Sharks will cool off a bit. Some of their players have been overperforming, but either way, with this deployment, he should be viable for the rest of the season. In a deeper league, definitely take a look at him. At number 19, we have Tommy Novak of the Nashville Predators. He missed around a month with an injury, but he just returned a couple of days ago. This season, he has 12 points in 16 games, which is pretty solid. But what we know about Tommy Novak is that last season, he put up 43 points in 51 games despite only averaging 14 minutes and 39 seconds of ice time per game, which is extremely impressive. His ice time totals have increased this season. They haven't been great. He's averaging around 15 minutes and 43 seconds this season. However, before he got injured, he got moved up to the first line power play and was getting more ice time as well. So we'll have to see how it all plays out. If he can average around 16 minutes of ice time per game and stay on the first line power play, there's a lot of potential with Tommy Novak. Doesn't put up a lot of peripherals, but guys, he could potentially be a point per game player for the rest of the season. Definitely keep an eye out for him. Moving on, we have Matias Maccelli of the Arizona Coyotes. This guy has been playing great as of late, and I do think there's a lot of potential with him for the rest of this season. If we're looking at last year, he had 49 points in 64 games, despite only averaging 15 minutes and 40 seconds of ice time per game. He's in the top 6 and not on the first line power play, but still, he's getting a lot of ice time as of late. As you guys can see here, he's averaging 19 minutes and 31 seconds in the last 5 games. Yes, this has to do with some of the injuries the Coyotes have had, but still, I think that he is underrated. His roster percentage is far too low. And if you're in a deeper league, you need to take a look at this guy. At number 17, we have Jake Neighbors of the St. Louis Blues. He is 18% rostered, and he is currently getting very good deployment. In the last 5 games, he's averaging 18 minutes and 51 seconds of ice time per game, and he's also on the first line power play. He's a young player. He's scoring a lot of goals. I do want to tell you guys that his shooting percentage is way too inflated. He will cool down. That is something to consider, but for now, with this deployment, he should be viable in fantasy. We'll have to see how it all plays out because there is a chance that it goes back to being around 15 or 14 minutes, which means he would be a drop. But for the short term, definitely take a look at Jake Neighbors. Number 16, we have Adam Fantilli of the Columbus Blue Jackets. The only issue with Adam Fantilli right now is his ice time is not good. He will not be viable in fantasy in a lot of leagues if this ice time continues. Even today, I think a lot of people like myself thought with Boone Jenner out, Fantilli would be seeing more ice time, but against the Panthers, he only got around 13 minutes. It's not going to cut it in fantasy. We'll have to see what happens. But regardless, he's still producing despite not averaging a lot of ice time. So if this ice time goes up and he can get more power play time, there is a lot of potential and upside. There's always a chance for a second half of the season breakout. So keep an eye on Adam Fantilli. There's a lot of potential there. At number 15, we have Nikolai Ehlers of the Winnipeg Jets. His deployment has been all over the place this season. And in the last 2 seasons under Rick Bowness, he's been in the doghouse, pretty much averaging around 15 minutes a night. However, as of late, he is getting better deployment, as you guys can see on this table. He has 17 minutes and 40 seconds of ice time per game in the last 5 games, and he's back on the top line with Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor. So Ehlers has a potential to be decent for the rest of the season if this continues. He's still not on the first line power play, which I don't love, but regardless, I do think there is some potential there, so keep an eye out for Nikolai Ehlers. At number 14, we have Gabriel Velarde of the Winnipeg Jets. I will say I don't love his ice time total since returning from injury. He's only averaging around 14 minutes a night. However, I do think this is just him getting back into game shape and then kind of easing him into it. We'll see how it changes throughout the year, but the reason he's on this list is because he's still in the first line power play, and before he was injured, he was getting top line minutes. He was getting like 19 to 20 minutes of ice time per game. Great in the preseason. He was on the top line as well, so I do think there is some potential there. We'll have to see how his deployment changes, like I said, but for a guy that is on the first line power play, only 11% rostered, definitely take a look at him. At number 13, we have one of my favorite must-add players on this list, and that man is William Eklund of the San Jose Sharks. He is only 5% rostered on Yahoo, and I think this is far too low, guys. He has 13 points in 27 games, which is very solid, but as of late, he's been playing really good. He has 5 points in the last 4 games, and his deployment is absolutely elite. As you guys can see in the last 5 games, 19 minutes and 35 seconds of ice time per game. This is not some sort of short-term fluke. He's been getting top-line minutes all season long. He's also on the first-line power play as well. This is a young player who is 21 years old, 7th pick in the 2021 NHL entry draft, so always the potential to break out there. I'm not telling you to add him immediately. In a deeper league, yes, you should, but in a more shallow league, just keep an eye out for him. He's a guy that was drafted with high draft capital and getting fantastic deployment, so that's something you want to keep an eye out for. We'll see how it all plays out, but at his roster percentage, one of my favorite must-add players for sure. At number 12, we have Kirill Marchenko of the Columbus Blue Jackets. I've talked about this guy a ton, so I won't waste your time, but basically, he was great last season. He scored a lot of goals, and this season he has been pretty solid as well. He has 17 points in 28 games, 9 of these points being goals. He's on the first-line power play, and he's getting top 6 minutes as well. He's getting better ice time than last season, and last season he was on pace for 29 goals. So I definitely am a big fan of Kirill Marchenko. Marchenko's also taking more shots this year, which we love to see. In general, guys, he's 23 years old, playing top 6 minutes, getting good power play time, and he has good goal scoring abilities as well. So take a look at Kirill Marchenko. 16% rostered is far too low. At number 11, we have Mikko Granlund of the San Jose Sharks. I know a lot of his points have come in the last week or two, but I still think he is a must-add player. The reason for this is his deployment is fantastic. He's averaging 21 minutes and 45 seconds in the last 5 games, and he's also on the first-line power play, which we love to see. I know the Sharks aren't the greatest team, and I don't think they're going to keep this up. They definitely have been overperforming, but still, you can't deny a guy with this deployment. He also has a pretty low shooting percentage as well, and he's shooting the puck more than he normally does if you're looking at the last couple of seasons. So take a look at Mikko Granlund. Probably not available because he's been picked up a lot in the last week, but still, in a more shallow league, if he's on your waiver wire, please take a look at him. At number 10, we have Casey Mittelstadt of the Buffalo Sabres. He's definitely one of my favorite must-add players on this list because his roster percentage is far too low in my opinion. I'm assuming this is because he doesn't put up the greatest peripherals, so if you're in a category league, he might not be the best option, but still, I think he slept on. He has 22 points in 28 games. He's on the first-line power play, and he is getting elite deployment, guys. In the last 5 games, you guys can see almost 23 minutes of ice time per game. I've said this before, but I'll say it again. Last season, he put up 59 points in 82 games despite only averaging 15 minutes and 43 seconds of ice time per game. And this season, he's averaging 19 minutes and 9 seconds of ice time per game. Over 3 more minutes of ice time. How many points do you think he's going to put up with this amount of deployment? I think he could put up 70 points in my opinion, so make sure you pick up Casey Mittelstadt before it's too late. At number 9, we have Sam Bennett of the Florida Panthers. This one is pretty obvious to me, guys. His roster percentage is far too low at 25%. He's on the first-line power play, a power play that should be elite. I think it's going to improve very soon, and we're already starting to see signs of it improving, so we'd love to see that for Sam Bennett. He's in the top 6 on a line with Matt Tkachuk, and he puts up amazing shots and hits. So pick up Sam Bennett before it's too late because he's definitely going to have some decent games soon. He's underrated because he's missed so many games this season, and the season rank is not reflective of how good he is. So like I said, pick up Sam Bennett. Lots of potential, and I think he's going to be pretty good for the rest of the season. At number 8, we have Nick Schmaltz of the Arizona Coyotes. His roster percentage is only 34%, which I think is far too low. He's been almost a point per game player in the last 2 seasons, and he's on his way to be that player once again. He has 20 points in 26 games, 9 of these points being goals. He's getting around 20 minutes of ice time per game on the first line and the first line power play, so absolutely incredible deployment. I think he's going to be great for the rest of the season, and he's due for a big game very soon, so pick up Schmaltz before it's too late. At number 7, we have Tom Wilson of the Washington Capitals. I know he's been picked up in most of your leagues already, but if you're in a more shallow league and you're considering picking him up, I suggest you take a look at him, especially if your league counts shots and hits because he puts up absolutely elite numbers in that department. The reason I'm a big fan of Tom Wilson is that his deployment is great as of late. He's averaging over 18 minutes of ice time per game in the last 10 games. He's also on the first line power play, which was largely due to TJ Oshie being out with an injury, but as of right now, with Oshie back, Wilson is still on this first line power play. We'll see how that develops, but I think there's a chance he could stay on there. He's actually getting better deployment than last season, so I think he could be like a 60-point player, putting up a lot of shots and hits, which is very solid in a lot of league formats. Pick him up before it's too late. At number 6, we have Lucas Raymond of the Detroit Red Wings. I think 60% rostered is still too low. I think it's going to increase very soon, so if you're in a more shallow league, take a look at Raymond. The reason I'm a fan of him is that his deployment as of late has been fantastic. He's been averaging over 18 minutes of ice time per game in the last 10 games. He's still on the first line power play, even with Patrick Kane back into the fold. So yeah, I think Raymond has a lot of potential for the rest of the season if this deployment sticks. He's a young player who is breaking out and has the potential to improve as the season goes on. So yeah, take a look at Lucas Raymond, and it could pay off. At number 5, you have Patrick Kane of the Detroit Red Wings. I know he's been picked up in most of your leagues, but I had to include him on this list. If he's available in your league, I suggest you take a look at him. I still have my concerns with Kane because of his age and also the fact that hip resurfacing surgery has really bad outcomes in the NHL. But still, he looks pretty good out there. His deployment is good as well, so if he's available, take a look at him and see if it pays off. At number 4, we have Oliver Bjorkstrand of the Seattle Kraken. The reason I think he's a must-add player is because his deployment has been great as of late. He's averaging over 18 minutes a night. He's on the first line power play, and he's also taking a lot of shots, which we love to see in fantasy. If he is available in one of your leagues and you need a forward, definitely take a look at Bjorkstrand. Lots of potential with this deployment. At number 3, we have Quinton Byfield of the Los Angeles Kings. I think I've included this guy on most of my must-add videos, and I'm going to include him once again. His roster percentage has definitely skyrocketed, 55% now on Yahoo. And basically with Byfield, it's pretty obvious, okay? He's on the first line on one of the best offensive teams in the NHL, and he's also on the first line power play, which I don't think he is going to get bumped off of. His ice time is improving as of late. He's getting 16 minutes and 26 seconds of ice time per game in the last 5 games. And he's also taking more shots as well. These are 2 very good signs. He's a young player that is breaking out. He looks amazing out there, so pick this guy up before it's too late. At number 2, we have Josh Norris of the Ottawa Senators. His roster percentage on Yahoo is far too low, which is why he's a must-add player on this list. 28%, guys. What are we doing here? I know he hasn't played great, but we have to look at his deployment. He's averaging over 18 minutes of ice time per game this season. He's on the first line power play, getting significant power play time. And he's basically got the same deployment in the last full season that he played in. That season, he put up 35 goals in 66 games, okay? I'm expecting Josh Norris to bounce back with this deployment. The math tells us that he should bounce back with the amount of shots he's taken as well, so pick him up for the bounce back, and it should pay off. The number 1 must-add player is Tomas Hertl of the San Jose Sharks. This is a little bit late in terms of telling you guys to add him, but I still think if he is sitting on your waiver wire in a more shallow league, you should take a look at him as long as it doesn't count plus minus. He's a guy that puts up great peripherals in terms of his shots and hits, and he's been a consistent 60 to 70 point player in the last couple of seasons, so I expect him to stay around these numbers. His deployment is fantastic, getting over 20 minutes of ice time per game on the first line power play, so take a look at Hertl. 48% roster is still too low in my opinion, and you should pick him up before it's too late. All right, guys, next up, I want to talk about some must-add defensemen. These are defensemen that have too low of a roster percentage, and let me tell you guys why. The first player is Jake Sanderson. He's on the first line power play on a power play that should improve. Thomas Chabot is injured, so there's no risk of him losing that first line power play spot in the short term. I think Sanderson's going to have some pretty big nights soon, so pick him up. I think his roster percentage at 58% is far too low. Then we have Noah Hannafin of the Calgary Flames. He got moved up to the first line power play, and I understand that he could easily get bumped down to the second unit. Rasmus Andersson was great on this power play last season. We'll see how it all plays out, but for now, he's been getting a lot of ice time lately. He's on the first line power play, so this is a no-brainer for me. Pick him up if you need a defenseman. At number 3, we have Jared Spurgeon of the Minnesota Wild. He's getting a lot of even strength ice time. He's on the first line power play. He puts up great peripherals, especially blocks, and he's only 35% rostered as well. So if you need a defenseman, please take a look at Jared Spurgeon. Number 4, we have Torrey Krug of the St. Louis Blues. He has 12 points in 27 games. And he's getting better ice time than he did last season. He's getting around 2 or 3 more minutes of ice time per game this season than last, which we love to see in fantasy. He's on the first line power play, and I think if this deployment continues, he should be pretty solid for the rest of the season. Then at number 5, we have Seth Jones. He got bumped back up to the first line power play. He has no goals in 26 games, which I don't think is sustainable. I think he's going to start scoring some more goals soon. I know the Blackhawks have a terrible roster and a terrible power play, but he's still getting around 25 minutes a night and on the first line power play. So if he's been dropped, I suggest you take a look at him. Then at number 6, we have Simon Nemec of the New Jersey Devils. He's not on the first line power play, but he is on the second unit, and he's getting a decent amount of ice time, 20 minutes and 38 seconds. He's only played 4 games. He's put up 3 points. He's a young, talented player, and I think in this Devils offense, he will always have the opportunity to put up points. So take a look at him, especially in a deeper league. Then we got Cam York of the Philadelphia Flyers. And what I want to say about Cam York is that he got moved up to the first line power play, but I'm not telling you this is going to be long term. They've moved around the defensemen on this power play quite a bit. It was Travis Sanheim, then it was Sean Walker, and now it's Cam York. Actually, I think they started with Cam York to start the season. There's a good chance that York gets bumped off to this first line power play once again. But for now, in the short term, especially in a deeper league at only 4% rostered, he's a must-add defenseman. Lastly, I want to talk about some must-add goalies. The first goalie on this list is Elvis Merzlikins of the Columbus Blue Jackets. Now, as you guys can see here, he's highlighted in blue, and what that means is he's better in points leagues. In the category league, I understand why you wouldn't want to roster him, but in a points league like Yahoo Default, where saves matter quite a bit, he's putting up a lot of them. He's starting the majority of the games for the Blue Jackets, and I think if this continues, he should be pretty good for the rest of the season. Number 2, we have Ilya Samsonov of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Joseph Woll just went down with a high ankle sprain, and his timeline is 4 to 6 weeks. It could be even longer because high ankle sprains are known to be pretty tricky. We'll see how it all plays out, but for now, in the short term, Samsonov is going to be the #1 starter on a playoff team, so definitely pick him up in a category league and a points league. At number 3, we have Charlie Lindgren of the Washington Capitals. He has been playing amazing as of late with a 2.34 goals against average and a .931 save percentage. He is only 28% rostered, and he is getting a lot of starts as of late. Now, I do want to say that this happened last year. Lindgren was playing really well, and people were saying, oh, he's going to take over the net over Kemper, but that didn't happen. Kemper became the #1 starter once again. I can't predict the future, but I don't think they're going to completely shut out Kemper and not give him starts. It's probably going to be a split at best, and there is a chance if Lindgren falls that they will go back to Kemper being the #1 starter. Either way, guys, for now, in the short term, there is potential here, so add him if you need a goalie and see if it pays off. The last goalie on this list is Sam Montembeault of the Montreal Canadiens. What I do want to say is that I wouldn't add him immediately, especially if you're in a more shallow league. I would definitely keep an eye on him, though. The reason for this is because it looks like they're trying to trade one of their goalies, and if it's Allen, then Montembeault will become the #1 starter, which means a lot of points in points leagues. He's clearly outplaying Allen as well if you're comparing their numbers, so there is a chance that he could steal the net moving forward. We'll see how it all plays out, but I'm impressed with how he's playing, and there is potential there. Lastly, guys, I just wanted to include some players that I think have too low of a roster percentage. Luke Hughes, he's on the best power play in the league. He's a lock on the first line power play with Doug Hamilton out long term, so I think he's going to have some big nights soon, and his roster percentage is going to go way up. Ryan O'Reilly getting a lot of ice time, first line power play, solid option. Vincent Trocheck, top 6, first line power play, amazing peripherals. Robert Thomas shooting the puck more this season, lots of ice time, point per game player. Mike Matheson, lots of ice time, first line power play. Brock Nelson, he is shooting the puck a ton. He can score so many goals. He's one of the most underrated players every season. I think he should have a higher roster percentage, so please take a look at him. Philip Gustafsson, I think he's going to be the #1 starter on the Minnesota Wild moving forward. The Wild are definitely bouncing back, and Gustafsson should be in for some big games. Stuart Skinner, complete control of the Oilers' net. The Oilers are still a playoff team, and he's in for a lot of wins. Carter Hart, the Flyers are looking great. He makes a lot of saves as well because the Flyers let a lot of shots against, which we'd love to see in points leagues. Matt Boldy, he definitely shouldn't have been dropped. People panicked on him. I was telling you guys to hold on to him and pick him up. He's bouncing back. He's still in your waiver wire. Pick him up, guys. Young player with a lot of potential. Valerie Nichushkin, top 6, first line power play, absolute beast. Not a lot to say. Travis Konechny, he's been elite in the last 2 seasons. He's on pace for over 40 goals. Top 6, first line power play. Still too low of a roster percentage. And then Matthew Barzal, only 80% roster, makes no sense to me. This guy is getting elite deployment, and he's shooting the puck way more this season, which is why I think he can keep this up. Barzal could be in for an 80-point-plus season if he stays healthy, so add him before it's too late. All right, guys, that's the end of the video. Make sure you hit that like button if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new to the channel, and I will catch you in the next one.